Hello everyone. We are going to start our very first lesson in English 1101 with the Google Doc Why Do We Write? Reading, Writing, and the Rhetorical Situation. This entire class basically we are going to be sort of exploring why we write and the reasons we do so. So, first we need to know exactly what rhetoric is. Rhetoric is the purposeful use of language to persuade, explain, describe, and or inform. Now, you guys probably already do this. We read rhetorically. Like, for example, you probably looked at your syllabus and you're like, oh my gosh, what is going to happen throughout this class? So, you read rhetorically, you decided what was expected of you. Also, newspapers, say you're looking for a car, you will look at the car ads, those sorts of things. Or even a book. When you open up a book and you look at the cover and you think to yourself, am I going to enjoy this book? You may read the small portion inside to sort of give you an idea if you are going to like it or not. Also, you write rhetorically. Oftentimes we draft and revise a message to resolve a problem or address an opportunity for a change. Example, you may send an email, you want somebody to help you move or something like this. So you sort of choose the situation and tailor your language to it. Next, the great thing about a rhetorical situation is that it offers us an opportunity to make a difference, often by solving a specific problem or addressing an issue for a specific audience. For example, you may be offered a promotion at work, but in order to receive that promotion, you have to fill out an application, get some recommendation letters. You probably have to answer some questions about yourself. So you will tailor your language to the purpose, which is getting that money, right? So we will deal with rhetorical situations throughout our lifetime, but what we need to learn to do is to decipher who our audience is going to be and how we are going to tailor our message to achieve our goals. Speaking of goals, goals help us, goals in our rhetorical situation, our rhetorical writing Google Doc. These are what I'm hopefully that we can accomplish. First, you need to understand the elements of any rhetorical situation. Depending on getting a scholarship, getting a raise. B, you'll need to recognize a rhetorical opportunity. Perhaps there's a stop sign that you run into every day and people are, they really, a red light would be more effective. So you're faced with a rhetorical opportunity to make a change within your city. C, you need to determine a purpose for your message. What is my purpose? Do I want to get a raise? Do I want to run for government? So there are a lot of different things and you have to tailor your purpose for your message. D, you need to consider your audience. This is probably the most important thing and generally the thing that we don't really think about. A lot of times when we speak to our friends, our family, we tailor our language. We're sort of casual. We may use slang, whatevs, things like that. However, if you're speaking to, say, your principal, your boss, your instructor, you are going to change your language. You are going to perhaps elevate your language for more important, serious conversations. And then E, you'll need to think about the rhetorical effects of context. And we're going to talk about context a little later in the Google Doc. So, what is a rhetorical situation? Well, the great thing about a rhetorical situation is it's composed of 5 parts. You have 1, the opportunity. You have 2, a writer. You have 3, the audience. You have 4, a purpose. You have 5, the message. 6, a stance. And 7, a context. And we're going to go through these one by one. So hopefully these will help you understand the rhetorical situation. Also, you will notice this is a Bambi-themed Google Doc, which will all make sense to you in just one moment. Okay, so let's start with our opportunity. In English 1101, we are going to do an APA paper. That's the American Psychological formatting. And we'll talk about that in great detail. Don't freak out. But an opportunity that you will have to face a rhetorical situation is going to be with your APA paper. You are going to choose a topic and you are going to form an argumentative essay, which means that you are going to choose a topic that has a for and an against group of individuals. So, your opportunity. What problem or issue is the writer taking the opportunity to resolve? Okay, so what issue appeals to you? Which issue do you want to convince others to get behind you, agree with you? I am going to use an example of an AP paper that I received probably 2 years ago. I had an individual who came up to me after class, and he was just precious, and he loved to hunt. And I typically prefer to have my animals alive and roaming about free rather than mounted on a wall somewhere. But he came up to me and he said, "All right, Miss Jones," he said, "this is what's going to happen." He said, "I am going to convince you that you should be glad that I hunt deer and that it is a beneficial thing for us all." And I was like, "Okay, you do that. You write me a paper and you convince me to change my mind." And he said, "All right, so that's going to happen." So, number 2, we're moving into our second part of the rhetorical situation. We have our writer, which all of you guys are going to be writers. You are going to enter a rhetorical situation when you identify an opportunity to propose change through the effective use of language. And that's what Cole did. Cole decided that he was going to take an opportunity to try to change my mind about hunting, that I should be pro-hunting. All right, 3, you must think about who is your audience. Now, Cole knew that his audience was Miss Jones, the English instructor. I'm fairly docile. I don't like blood. I'm not a big fan of gore. But he knew that he needed to figure out how he could influence me in order to change my mind. So, we always have to think about our audience when we are entering a rhetorical situation. And this means that we have to have a clear understanding of the audience, its values, concerns, knowledge, and capabilities. These things help writers convey their purpose through their message and help readers orient themselves to this message. So, Cole had to tailor the message to myself. Okay. Now, when we're thinking about audiences, we have 3 main types of audiences, and you guys need to know these. The first one is a specialized audience. A specialized audience has a demonstrated interest in the subject and has both interest and knowledge of the topic under consideration. So, a specialized audience would be, for example, if a cardiologist is giving a discussion on the mitral valve to a group of other cardiologists who have an extensive knowledge of the mitral valve. Now, when he would tailor this discussion to his audience, he would already have an elevated vernacular of the mitral valve, so he wouldn't have to do a lot of defining, a lot of description. So, specialized audience. So, just think doctor to doctor. Now, we also have a diverse audience. Now, diverse audience consists of readers with differing levels of expertise and varying interest in the subject at hand. You guys are a diverse audience. Some of you are in the nursing program. Some of you are in the computer technology. So you guys are a diverse audience. So you guys have a lot of different interests. So classrooms are a great example of a diverse audience. And then 3, we have a multiple audience. And this means that you have more than one audience in which you will present an argument or a paper. For example, a lot of times in the classroom, you will do a rough draft of, I don't know, a small class write, maybe a compare and contrast. And then what I will do is I will have you write the paper, and then I will have you hand it to a neighbor, and then that person will read your paper. That fellow classmate will be your first audience. Then after that individual reads your paper, you will take that back, you will edit it, and then you will turn it into myself. Now, once I read that paper has had 2 audiences, which hence makes it a multiple audience because you have had more than one individual who has either read your paper or been present for a presentation. So those are your 3 main types of audiences. All right, so let's get back to our rhetorical situation. Okay, so purpose. Does the writer want to entertain, inform, explain, describe, or argue a point? How does the purpose connect with the opportunity? Well, in Cole's situation with his APA paper, he wanted to inform me and explain to me why hunting is crucial in parks, specifically deers, overpopulation, that sort of issue. So he made it his goal to respond to this opportunity, this APA paper, to make a change in me, in myself. He wanted me to change my mind. And the great thing about entering rhetorical situations is that once you realize that your words can spark change, modify a situation, address a need, or resolve a problem, then you can determine your purpose. You can start changing the things around you, and that is very, very powerful. You know, that old saying, the pen is mightier than the sword. So I think that's really empowering if you can sort of embrace that. So Cole's purpose was to inform me, explain to me why deer hunting should be opened up in our parks for a specific amount of time. So, let's move to message. Now, this is the thing that Cole knew about me. He knew this about his audience. He knew, first of all, that Miss Jones had a 5-year-old little girl who enjoyed playing outside on her little swing set. Now, what Cole did was he sort of explained what happens to the deer population if it is overpopulated. First of all, he went on to describe how they suffered, how they starved to death, how it was a slow, painful way to go for these animals. And then second, he began to describe how once deers overpopulate a certain area that they move into our local neighborhoods searching for food. Well, along with the deer come predators. And so my little child who's out on her swing set out in the backyard looks like a tasty People McNugget to these predators who are following the deer into our neighborhoods because they have become overpopulated. Brilliant, right? Hey, I'm all about it. I do not want my daughter to get gobbled up by a predator. So I'm like, okay, Cole, let's go hunting next weekend, you and me. So he tailored his message. He identified a rhetorical opportunity. He prepared a message for a specific audience, right? And he was successful. And that's the best way to be successful in a rhetorical situation is to link your purpose to your audience. And that is precisely what he did. It was incredibly brilliant. I was very proud of him. So 6, let's look at your stance. What is the writer's stance? Stance includes your opinion. Are you for it? Are you against it? You know, we all have really strong opinions. So, you know, this gives you an opportunity to sort of take a side and really try to convince others that your way of thinking is correct. Okay? So, 7 is context. Now, context includes the time and place in which a message is read or written. Okay, the writer and the intended audience and the medium of delivery. So, for example, the context of your message. Are you going to give a speech? Are you going to stand in front of a group of people? Well, if that is your context, then perhaps you want to stand up. Perhaps you want to start out with a joke. One time there was this, that sort of thing. Now, a knock-knock joke is not going to work well at all in a written paper. So you really have to think about your context, how your message is going to be presented. So it's very important that the audience receives a writer's message within a specific context. That includes what others have already said about the topic and how that topic was presented. It just helps you keep everything consistent. And also, whenever we do our APA paper, we are going to learn the classical arrangement. So you will actually be given a format for your context in your paper. All right, so these are our expectations for academic writing, and this is going to be throughout our entire class. First of all, you need to respond appropriately to the assignment. That means if I ask you to give me a compare and contrast paper, that you don't write me a narrative, okay? So make sure that you look at those instructions. Make sure that you pay attention to what I'm asking. Make sure that you look at word count, these sorts of things. Second, you need to think critically. You need to think about the context, the audience. You need to think about what your purpose is. Also, we are going to be applying outside sources. That means scholarly sources. From this point on, we will only use scholarly sources. No Wikipedia, no SparkNotes, no eNotes, no Schmoop, none of that. Those are unscholarly sources. So everything, any sort of academic writing that we do, we have to have a scholarly source, and we will go over that as well. Fourth, you need to learn to organize and develop your material effectively and logically. Now, in the beginning, we'll look at outlines. We're going to look at brainstorming, editing. So hopefully we will be able together to sort of help you learn how to organize and develop your thoughts. Fifth, communicate with clarity, purpose, and a sense of audience. This just runs into our grammar issues, our transition issues, how your paragraphs are going to flow from one to another. Also, we're going to concentrate on editing and proofreading. This is a huge part of writing, and I think it's often overlooked. So we are going to delve into that. And then also be equipped to deliver your knowledge and researched information in a number of ways, whether it be orally, visually, electronically, or verbally. You may be asked to give a Google Doc. You may be asked to, well, with online we really can't, but you might in the future be asked to give a speech. So these things would be relevant to your academic writing. Now, when you are analyzing assignments, first of all, as we said before, you need to think about your task. Am I asking you to argue? Am I asking you to describe, explain? Make sure you know exactly what your task is. Also think about your role and your audience. Is your audience going to be an instructor? Is it going to be a congressman? Is it going to be I don't know. There are several different audiences that you will be approached with in your life. Also, format. Are we working in APA? Which we will be. You may be asked to write an MLA paper in another class. Also, does it need to be typed? Can it be handwritten? These sorts of things. Process to be followed. Will I have to do library research? Will I need to have scholarly sources? Will I need to do an annotated bibliography? Will I need in-text citations? All of these questions. And then you need to look for the criteria for evaluation. How will the final product be graded? What are the criteria for success? These generally will fall into your rubric and what that sort of looks like. So make sure that you really have an understanding of what your assignment is asking you before you sort of launch into the writing of it. Now, we have three main types of writing that we are going to be concerned with. First, we have our expressive writing. Now, expressive writing emphasizes the writer's feelings and reactions to people, objects, events, or ideas. Expressive writing tends to be more of our creative writing. We're going to do a bit of expressive writing when we work with our narrative chapter. Poetry is expressive writing. Feeling stuff, that feeling is expressive writing. Second is our expository writing. Expository writing focuses on objects, events, or ideas rather than on the writer's feelings about them. So, I always think of expository writing sort of like watching a news reporter, just the facts. The plane crashed down in a small town in Texas. There were 4 fatalities. Not exactly. And the plane crashed down and it was horrific and people were weeping all around. That's not expository. Expository is just the facts. And then 3, we have argumentative writing. And argumentative writing is intended to influence the reader's attitudes and actions. So argumentative writing is great because it wants you to make a change. All right? So those are our 3 main types of writing. Thus includes our first Google Doc.